It's U of L Today on 93.9 The Ville. Here's your host, Mark Hebert.
And welcome to U of L Today with Mark Hebert on 93.9 The Ville. This is the show about all the great stuff going on at the University of Louisville. This is the good news show about academics, research, and the good things that the students are doing at the University of Louisville. So on the show today, as you may have heard, U of L has been ranked the top university in the country for African American students. We'll talk with a couple of U of L leaders about the programs U of L has instituted to improve the college experience and academic performance of African American students. The first segment is Better Health Together, sponsored by Passport Health Plan. Passport is a partner with U of L and has been administering Medicaid benefits and improving the health and quality of life for Kentuckians for more than 20 years. And it seems like the Louisville area just can't catch a break when it comes to health crisis. Opioid overdoses, hepatitis A, now West Nile virus. Dr. Sarah Moyer is the head of the Louisville Metro Public Health Department. She's an assistant professor of health management at U of L, and she's here to talk about the stuff going on public health-wise in the city of Louisville. Sarah, good to see you again.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
All right. Well, where do you want to start? When do you want to start? You want to start with West Nile? That's the most recent thing to hit your department. So let's talk about West Nile virus.
Yeah, so it's that time of year for West Nile. It's in all of our mosquitoes across the entire county, and so encouraging everyone, if they're out, especially between dusk and dawn, to make sure you're wearing long sleeves, lots of DEETs, and watch out for those mosquito bites because it's pretty much in all of our mosquitoes now.
And West Nile, there were, 5 cases so far in Louisville?
We've had 5 cases so far this year in Louisville. No deaths. That's the good news. 5 cases that have been reported. The good news about West Nile is most people don't get any symptoms, but there are some that end up in the hospital pretty sick, and those are our 5 cases we've had. And
they're pretty, when you talk about pretty sick, are they potentially critical cases or not quite that bad?
It's it depends. So like Hep A, there's a large range of symptoms. Some people don't know they have it, and some people end up in the hospital with really bad headaches, nausea, vomiting, really what we call neuroinvasive, and that's what you don't want to end up. So especially if you've got a weakened immune system, please make sure you're protecting yourself against mosquito bites. You're making sure your yards don't have any standing water. So just a cap full of water is all a mosquito needs to reproduce. So just making sure all your gutters are cleaned out, all your pans and pots and kids' toys are all dumped. Get rid of all that standing water from all that great rain we've had.
And I think I heard you say that just about all our mosquitoes in Louisville are carrying West Nile virus. Is that true?
That's true. So, we've found evidence of it in almost every zip code in the city.
But folks are immune to it, and most folks don't when they get that mosquito bite, they aren't impacted by it, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But there's a chance, and it's hard to know which one you'll be. So especially if you have a weakened immune system, be careful of mosquito bites.
So older adults, folks with cancer or those kinds of things where their immune systems are compromised. That's who we're talking about here, right?
That's what we're talking about, yeah. Or if you're new to the area too, especially. And especially if you're out from that, when it starts to get dark out outside until the morning, that's when the mosquito that likes West Nile is around.
But it's October. There's not supposed to be mosquitoes around.
It's 85 degrees outside. It's hot. It's not really October. Yeah, so until that cold front comes in, we still have to worry about West Nile.
Okay. And these West Nile cases that just cropped up, were those people bitten by the mosquitoes like 2 or 3 months ago and the symptoms just promulgated themselves now, or was it something that was fairly recent, like they got bit in September?
Yeah, it was probably more recent than that. It's just like any other virus gets transmitted. It shows up in a couple weeks.
And what can happen with West Nile virus? You talked about the neurological symptoms.
Headaches.
But
like I said, most people don't get anything, but then it's kind of like a flu-like symptom, headaches, just not feeling good.
Just feeling yucky. But it can't kill you, right?
It can, yeah. 2016, we had 1 death.
Okay, in our area.
City, yeah.
Do you know how many there were across the United States?
I don't know that number off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
Yeah, but CDC is reporting West Nile in almost every single state across the country, so it's a problem.
So it doesn't matter if you're going to Florida or New York State, wherever, you're susceptible.
It's this time of year, usually late August through until we get that first cold. It's West Nile season.
Gotcha. All right. We're talking with Dr. Sarah Moyer again, who's the head of the Louisville Metro Public Health Department and an assistant professor at the University of Louisville. We're talking about some of the health problems and conditions going on in the Louisville area. All right, hepatitis A. We've talked a lot about it on this show. You've been talking a lot about it out in the community. Where are we on the hepatitis A outbreak in the city of Louisville?
So that has good news. So our outbreak is starting to slow. We're at 613 cases, which is a lot, but we're getting less than one case in a day reported to us, down from our high in about April, which was 4. So the numbers of new cases are slowing down. We're still encouraging everyone who hasn't been vaccinated yet to get vaccinated, especially in our 2 high-risk categories of people who use drugs or friends and family members of people who use drugs, and then also homeless or people with insecure housing.
Any idea how many folks in Louisville have gotten vaccinations since this whole thing started last spring?
That's a great question. So we have record about 90,000 from all our partner organizations. So reports from the hospital systems and big pharmacies like Kroger and
Walgreens
have given us numbers. So about 90,000 people that we know of since January.
That's a bunch of folks. And I know I got one. I'm not in the high risk category, but I got one. But I haven't had the second shot. Yeah. Do I need to have that second shot?
So you're protected for this outbreak with just that one shot. So you probably have protection for at least 10 years. If you want to have lifelong protection and not have to worry about it 20 years from now, then go ahead and get that second shot and 6 months after you had the first. And anytime 6 months or later after that first shot.
And with the hepatitis A outbreak, were there any deaths? Were there any...
We've had 5 deaths with hepatitis A. Okay. So out of that 613, the majority of those 613 have ended up in the hospital, and we've had 5 deaths. So,
and when you get hepatitis A, even if you don't die, can you have some lifelong problems because you had hepatitis A right now? I mean, does it impact you for the rest of your life?
So hepatitis A, your body kind of clears on its own. I know some people complain of fatigue and some symptoms that might last longer than just the infection, but your body clears the Hep A infection from the liver.
Okay, so you can get rid of it.
You get rid of it, which is different than hepatitis B and hepatitis C that you have to take medicines and treatment for to get rid of.
All right, we're talking with Dr. Sarah Moyer again, who's the head of the Louisville Metro Public Health Department. And this is Better Health Together, sponsored by Passport Health Plan. All right, and I know everybody right now is out there getting their flu shots, as you should. It's flu season. Well, it's getting to be flu season. Why are shots warranted in September and October? Because don't the flu shots only last a certain number of months if you get it now? Am I wrong or right about that?
So the flu shot changes every year, so people think it wears off, but it's good. It should be good for the entire flu season. And we're already starting to see a few flu cases already this year. So
in October?
Yep. So get that flu shot. And if you think about risk too, I mean, we talked about West Nile and hepatitis A that have had between 0 and 5 deaths with both of those. Flu, we had 49 people in Louisville that passed away from flu last year.
Wow.
So, it's probably the biggest impact, and the best thing you could do for your health is get your flu shot.
So 49 people died from a flu shot. How many of those had a flu shot? Do you know?
Majority of them did not.
Okay, as you would suspect.
Yep.
But some of them did. I mean, it's the same thing we keep talking about, weakened immune system. And so that's why it's really important that, especially people that are around the elderly or kids under 5, that they make sure they have the flu shot, not just for themselves, but to protect their family members and friends. All right, and after the flu season hits, you always hear in the media that it was, the vaccinations were only, 40% effective or whatever that percentage was, that it didn't stop all cases of the flu. Or all strains of the flu. And we never know going into like this year, we don't know if the vaccine this year will stop all the different strains of the flu, right? Is that fair?
That's fair. So the flu vaccine is not quite as effective as the hepatitis A vaccine, but it's still super important because even if you might get the flu, it's not nearly as bad as if you didn't get the flu shot. So last year, a lot of the cases of people who had the flu, even though they had the shot, they were able to stay home, they were able to get better, versus the ones that didn't have the flu shot were the ones that ended up in the hospital and the ones that ended up dying. So get your flu shot no matter what. Even if you get the flu, it's not as bad as if you hadn't gotten the flu shot.
So that's the pitch to those people that say, well, I heard the flu shot's not as effective against all these strains of flu, so why bother and get it? Yeah. I don't want to get it. So that's your pitch, though, right?
That's my pitch, yeah. I mean, you might get it, but you'll be at home and you'll be back to work a lot faster than if you didn't get the flu shot.
Talking with Dr. Sarah Moyer, the director of the health department here in Louisville, Kentucky, and the assistant professor of health management at the University of Louisville. All right, well, let's talk about Healthy Louisville 2025. What is that?
So that's our community health improvement plan to improve the health of Louisville over the next 5 years. So we're really excited. We have a Healthy Louisville 2020 that we're wrapping up over the next couple of years, and we've just kicked off our planning for Healthy Louisville 2025. If you're interested in being a part of that, please go to healthylouisvillemetro.org.
Easy for you to say.
Right, exactly. And there's a great survey there. You can see all the results we had of our health impact, our health equity report, which has all the data of where different health outcomes affect different communities across our city. And then it also has the results of our community health survey. That's what I'm looking for. That community health survey looks at what the community cares about for health. So we combine what the data says with what people care about, and from that we get their themes of what we're going to work on for the next 5 years.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So we're looking at 2025, so you're talking 7 years from now. So is there anything that you can look in your crystal ball right now and say, you know what, this is a health issue headed towards Louisville, Kentucky in 7 years, and we need to prepare for it right now? Is there anything out there on the horizon that you see that we really aren't prepared for that we should be?
So infectious disease-wise, I think we're there. We've got a great mosquito control program, so something new pops up. There'll probably be a new Zika on the horizon. It will be great. The big things that we're focusing on that we're working on access to healthcare, we're working on social economic barriers, and we're working on environmental equity was what came out of what the community cared about, the health department working on. So more of those social root causes of health versus those scary big threats that people see
and deal with all the time. All right, Dr. Sarah Moyer, it's always great having you on the show. A recent report from the University of Southern California's Race and Equity Center ranked U of L the #1, yes, numero uno university for African American students. Maureen Taylor Archer is U of L's Vice Provost for Diversity, and Leandra Gully is an Assistant Director of the Cultural Center. They're here to talk about what makes U of L great for black students. Welcome to both of you. Good to see you.
Thank you.
What was your reaction, Maureen, when you saw that study from USC that ranked us #1 for African American students?
Actually surprised, but very thrilled, because I think that there are many things that happen within the university that we don't visually see. And so it's really good to see the university having such a ranking. Very positive.
Leandra, what was your reaction when you heard that?
I think it was the same. And actually, how I found out was I just happened to be looking on the internet, and a student at the same time had come into my office, and she was like, "Did you see the article?" And I was like, "What article?" So before I even had a chance to click on the link, she gave me a play-by-play of essentially what it said. But I think it's definitely deserved, because I think, again, as Dr. Taylor Archer mentioned, I think there's a lot of things that happened on campus, and sometimes you can't necessarily always see the impact immediately. So being able to see that over time, the services and the resources that we provide for African American students is actually, contributing to their holistic development.
And it's fun to be able to celebrate the good stuff that happens at the University of Louisville. So the reason I had you guys on the radio show was to talk about what are some of the things that we do to support African American students. What are we doing to recruit more African American faculty members, those kinds of things. So let's just start right off the top. I guess, Maureen, why don't you talk about the broad spectrum here?
Right, and I guess this is really a good time for us to really acknowledge and thank those, what I would say, unsung programs that we have on campus. And I would start with diversity recruitment and in the admissions office, because they work tirelessly in terms of recruiting African American students. The other part of it is that once a student has been admitted and comes to campus, they are automatically connected with a peer mentor through our Connect mentoring program. The other part of it is that, and I really do have to acknowledge the staff in the Cultural Center, because even with staff reductions, they never missed a beat in terms of serving African American students through the living learning community, through the academic monitoring and coaching that take place through the Cultural Center. There are over 500 Porter Scholars, and they're under the purview of Leandra Gully. And that academic monitoring and coaching is on a day-to-day basis. And so what they do in terms of really directing our students to support services, be they through the REACH tutoring program or to supplemental instruction. We have all of those things, and they are, so I would say in some ways, really an anchor in terms of the success of our students and students of color in general.
I want to talk about the services offered at the Cultural Center with Leandra here in just a second, but I want you to talk a little bit more about admissions, because every school in America is out there saying we want more African American students to come to our campus. But we, the University of Louisville, I think had the largest class of African American in the freshman class this school year, I believe, in the fall, percentage-wise. So what makes U of L different in being able to recruit black students as opposed to any other school? Why do you think they decide to come here?
I think it's the recruitment tools. And so one of the things the admissions office employs is that they have a group of students that are called the aviators. And so the aviators are actually predominantly students of color, and so they connect with those students after they apply or going out into the high schools to help them recruit. And so that's really kind of like the first touch, and so that's where those students, through current college students, can kind of really get a glimpse of like what their campus life would look like if they came to U of L. And so I think they do a really good job of making sure that they connect current students to prospective students to really being able to communicate the type of experiences that they could have if they came to U of L.
I think the other parts of it in terms of strategy and what we've been doing is that, you know, within the university, we have probably one of the only schools with a Pan-African Studies program, and that's a draw.
I know Ricky Jones is bragging about that. He's the chair of that department.
But we also have a core value of diversity and social justice. And so I would say that and I say to parents, when they are considering schools or when students are making choices, that there are some things that set University of Louisville apart. One is the caring faculty that we have, those core values that we have, and that, you know, we are not just recruiting students. We are concerned about their success. And so we are not just, they're more than a number. And I say to parents, if their sons or daughters decide to come here, we're like Allstate. They're going to be in good hands. Or if you happen to be a Farm Bureau person, we're like a good neighbor. So whatever it is, we are there, and we are there for our students. We care about our students, and we care about their success.
We're talking with Maudine Taylor Archer, who's the Vice Provost for Diversity, and Leandra Gully, who is the Assistant Director of the Cultural Center at the University of Louisville. We're talking about this survey, which rated the University of Louisville the top university in the country for black students and African-American students. So, Leandra, let's talk about something Maudine mentioned just a second ago about the services offered and the touches that you have once a African-American student is enrolled at the University of Louisville, they become a freshman at U of L. What happens? What's the touch that happens there?
And so the first point of contact that we have with those students is it's actually orientation. And so after orientation, what happens is, which the Cultural Center, we have a few different sessions that happen during orientation that will let us interact not only with the students but also the parents. But after that, we actually will send them an invitation to participate in the Cultural Center's Early Arrival Program. The Early Arrival Program was something that we developed a few years ago in collaboration with some campus partners, including faculty members, housing, the Counseling Center, and some others, to really help students get acclimated to campus a couple of days before school starts. And so once they go through the Early Arrival Program, it's actually worked out perfectly, because then we actually will roll right into Welcome Week events. And so from there, students are essentially given information about just the services that are in the Cultural Center. So the retention program, which essentially allows any student, whether they are a person of color or not, to meet with us 2 to 3 times per semester. And those are really just designed to be check-in meetings. So we try to have those meetings to really be proactive. And so if there's some issues or if there's some things on the horizon, that we can kind of catch some of those things before they get to the point of, where students really in trouble. And so really just being there to support the students in a mentoring role, whether that be just for support services or they just don't know how to navigate the university.
Well, and you told me that you have what you call checkups 2 or 3 times a semester, where you just check in with these students and to make sure that their grades are okay, they're doing okay in their classes, and you reach out to them proactively, not waiting for them to show up at the Cultural Center to say, hey, I need help, right?
Right, that is correct. And again, because we know that, especially with the majority of the students that we see, especially first-year students, if they're first-generation students, they're not going to come into the university knowing where to go if they have any questions or if they need anything. And so we really try to reach out to be that source of support and let them know that we are here regardless of whether their situation is personal, academic, financial, or whatever it is. We just want to be able to support them because, again, parents entrust us when they send their kids here, and so we want to make sure that when they get here, they stay here and that they leave with a degree.
Maureen Taylor Archer, what are some of the hurdles that African American students face when they show up on a college campus as freshmen versus what a white middle class student would face?
Well, some of our students, and this is not only African American students, but some of our students are certainly first generation.
A lot of them.
And about a third of our students or low income. And so one of the things that those hurdles, and I think Leandra mentioned this, is that how do you navigate your way and what are those resources that are there? So if you don't have, and even the importance of getting involved, student involvement is really important. And so we have a number of recognized student organizations, African American primarily, but open to other students. We encourage our students to assume leadership positions in SGA and in other organizations, but we also have the Black Student Union. We have the African American Male Initiatives. We have Brothers United. We have the Black Diamond Choir, and we have all of the what we call the Divine Nine, the historically Black Greek fraternities and sororities. So we have all of those there to help
it's a support
have
system.
students to actually feel supported. But, that doesn't take away from some of the structural things that we still have to encounter, because some of our students still may experience different forms of implicit or explicit bias. They still may have micro or macro aggression. So, we understand that there are things that our students can confront, and that's why providing those services and even looking structurally at what we need to do to remove any form of discrimination or anything that students may confront. And I think this particular president, if I could just say a word, her, when I say natural, but her statements, the University of Louisville is a great place for students to learn, a great place for employees, faculty and staff to work, and a great place to invest. And it's because we value equity, inclusion, and we strive for inclusion. So I think all of that diversity and equity and paying attention to that as one of our core values will help us, as will, Mark, this ranking help us in terms of recruiting.
Sure doesn't hurt, does it? We're talking with Maureen Taylor Archer, who's U of L's Vice Provost for Diversity, and Leandra Gully, who's the Assistant Director of the Cultural Center at U of L. What is the percentage of African American students that identify themselves as African American in our undergraduate population? What is it? Maureen, do you know?
It's close to 11%.
And the percentage of African Americans in Kentucky is 6%, maybe something like that. So the percentage of black students that we have on our campus is greater than the percentage of African Americans in the state of Kentucky, and that was one of the things that this ranking was based on, that you're out there recruiting and retaining these folks. And also the other one thing that I looked up, Leandra, when we were talking, I guess it was last week, about this survey from USC that rated us number one, was the retention rate that we have as a result, and perhaps of the African American Male Initiative and others, but we're retaining and doing a much better job of retaining from year to year the black students that we're getting on this campus. In other words, are moving along from freshman to sophomore, junior, and graduation. So is the graduation rate among African American students, isn't it about the same, maybe even a little bit higher than white students, I think?
No, actually, that's one of the gaps that we have. We have the graduation, and I think when some may question, our this recognition being warranted. I think it's because we still have some gaps that we have
still
to
a ways
fill.
to
So
go.
those numbers are still there, and I think that's why the president and others constantly remind us that
We can do better.
cannot rest on our laurels. There are many things that we have to do to really have our students excel and really have even higher graduation rate. So there is no difference. In fact, we're aspirational in wanting African American students and other students of color to graduate at even higher rates than majority students, because we're all wanting those gaps not to be there. And I would say this would extend to low income and first gen students as well.
I talked to a African American male who was a non-traditional student and is training to become a teacher, and he's going through U of L. And I asked him why he came back to college basically to become a teacher, and he said because when he was going through school, there wasn't anybody that looked like him. There was a professor or there was a teacher, and so what is the University of Louisville doing to get more teachers, professors, staff members that look like the African American students we have on campus?
And I think you have raised a really core point. We have, when we look at the total number of African American faculty, we have had slight increases over the years. So when I started at the university, when I'm talking about all faculty, full-time, part-time term, there were 62, and we now have 141, but we're counting everyone. So when we break that down by rank and tenure versus tenure track versus term, you can get some the metrics for those. But what there has been and what will continue to be is that we work collaboratively. Our deans and chairs of the academic units are committed to increasing those numbers of faculty of color. So they're out there, and we're using, when I say some of the best practices to make that happen, that would include personal outreach, through professional organizations and other places. When positions become available, we realize that it's just not enough to put an ad in a professional magazine. So you
got to work at it.
Touch, absolutely. We
Gotta
have
work
to
at
be assertive in that.
All right,
Yeah.
Leandra Gully, one final word about how U of L supports African American students.
I think it's, it's very cliche to say that, it takes a village. And I think that that's certainly true of this situation. In addition to the Cultural Center and some of the other units that report to the Vice Provost for Diversity and International Affairs, we have numerous collaborations and partnerships across campus, whether that be with student involvement, student affairs, the academic units, housing, financial aid, admissions. And so we really try to make sure that it's a community effort and it's not just an effort that is taken on by one office. And so I'm definitely grateful for the colleagues and the partners that we've been able to have to be able to make this happen.
But more work to do, right?
And if I could just echo what Leandra said, it is all of this. This recognition is for the whole of the university, and so we all can recognize the efforts that are made.
And let's not discount that we've got a woman of color as the brand new president of the University of Louisville. So
That
don't
definitely
discount that
helps.
as a factor. All right.
Great.
Thank you both.
All right.
Maureen,
Sure,
thank you very
thank
much.
you.
And Leandra, thank you very much for being on the show. Thanks for listening to U of L Today with Mark Hebert. And go Cards.